Yo, Power.
What up, man?
So I'm watching this video game streamer, and it's this themed, costume setup. We got like pumpkin decorations, bats and everything, and it was really cool. I'm really into it.
Okay.
And, the streamer's getting these awesome wins until someone outed them that they were cheating. So you could almost say they were some empty victories, some Halloweens.
No. Reset. No.
I had to do it.
Man. Halloweens. Just cancel us right now. Just cancel us. Get us off the air. All right, we don't deserve to be here, man.
No, man, we come in with the best jokes. Only top tier for everybody.
Halloweens. Okay. Hey, yo. Oh, man. Hey, y'all. Welcome back to an episode of Power and Reset. Where we're gonna reset, we're gonna reset for this special, okay? After reset, Halloween, that's a little bit there. I think we gotta talk some scary shit today.
This is our first ever special. We going off formula. We going off script in new territory just in time for spooky season, for Halloween.
Yes, we're going off the deep end. We're going to be talking horror games. We're going to be talking about games. We're going to be talking about what makes horror games good, fun. Why do we like them? Why Reset can't play them. We're going to be talking about all that.
So we need to start there.
Let's
Matter
get
of
going.
fact, like you said, I'm not a big horror game guy. I haven't played a lot of the greatest. It's just not my thing.
Yes.
But Power, you on the other hand, you are the expert.
I love horror, right? I grew up in a family where horror movies were on more than Sesame Street, okay? So I grew up with Freddy Krueger and Jason, all these other super freaks. And so it transferred over to the games that I really like to play. Which is everything, but I do love horror games, man.
See, you're listening.
Diving into it.
You say Freddy Krueger, and I'm like, is that a cereal? Is that some cookies?
Hey, close enough.
I'm not that stupid.
Count Dracula, all that stuff. Chocolate Count.
Oh yeah, that's a cereal too.
Yeah. Well, so I like all that shit, man. I really do, and I like all types of horror games. So we're gonna go through it today.
I need you to be my guide.
I'm gonna guide you.
I'm coming in, and I don't know where to start. Power, I need you to.
I know you got some games in your Reset. I know you played some horror games before, and I need to hear it. All right, this is a Halloween special. I need to know what you've played.
Oh, and I can think of a few, man. Maybe that even I loved, and you could call them horror games. So we'll get there.
Well, look. There's no time to waste here. There's so many good horror games, all right? And there's no way we're going to capture them all. So I'm going to just dive into it, all right?
Jump right in.
Cool. So look. All right, I'm diving. So Dead Space, right? Have you heard of Dead Space? Have you played Dead Space?
I played the first one.
Dead Space, a series of 3 games. Why you should play this? Because it's the closest game that is similar to me to Alien, other than Alien Isolation. Or that other crappy Alien Marines game. I found it crappy. You are playing as a, basically like a space engineer, I believe he was. And you receive this this distress signal, and you have to fly into the ship. And you don't know what's going on. There's something happening on the ship. You and your small crew, I think there's 2 others with you. It's been a while since I played it. You arrive on this pretty massive shuttle, this base, and as soon as you arrive, you can just tell shit is hit the fan here. There's no one around, the power is out, and of course, because this is a horror game, you and your crew, let's separate. Don't worry,
can't have other people around.
The thing about Dead Space that makes it so good, specifically the first game, is the feeling of isolation. You are not only in trouble, in over your head, underexperienced, with no weapons. You're using the weapon that you get in this game is called a plasma cutter. It's not even supposed to be a weapon. It's supposed to be used as an engineering
tool.
Yeah,
almost.
It's a tool.
It's almost kind of like Half-Life, where like your main gun is like not even like a traditional weapon.
Exactly. And it's funny because it's a badass weapon. I mean, it shoots like a particle beam, like a beam in the shape of like a blade or something. And you shoot it out, it comes out in a straight line. It'll chop anything in half like a lightsaber would. But you're also isolated. You're in space. It's called Dead Space for a reason, right? You're stuck out there. There's no help coming. And when you see these creatures, I'm talking about if for our listeners who have not played this series, which would be shocking to me, but if you want a good horror game, you want to dive in, and I think they're remaking this series for current gen, this is where it's at. And if you like the movie The Thing, the creatures are very similar to the creatures from The Thing. They are mutated. They are they look like humans that have limbs that stretch too far, that have been contorted in ways that just would disgust you. And the first time you see one is shocking. So Dead Space, that's going to be the first game I got to talk about, right? Next game. We just got to keep going.
Oh, yeah.
We can't
let's dive in. Hold on. Let me get ready here.
Okay. Condemned. Another game that has, I think actually Condemned only has 2 games, whereas Dead Space has 3, right? Okay. As Dead Space continued on, it became less of a horror game, almost more of an action game. The main character gets some cool Samus-looking suit from Nintendo.
I heard they're doing like a remake or a remaster or something. That's the first one.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. If people want to play that, wait for the remaster. Enjoy. Condemned, I don't think that's getting a remake. However, I have to say, Condemned. I played this game way back. Xbox 360 dropped. This is the time I was old enough at that time. I would think I was 15, 16, whatever. I was diving deep into horror. I was like, man, these horror games are awesome. I had never played any of the games on PS2 or anything, PS1 before that. So Condemned, you play as an FBI agent tracking down a serial killer. Well, it opens up with you tracking this guy down in like an abandoned, I think it's an abandoned apartment complex, I want to say. And you're chasing him down. Now, I'm going to keep comparing these games to things so people can connect it. This is very Seven-ish. Like, if you've ever seen the movie Seven with Morgan Freeman and Brad Pitt, it's very dark, gritty. This apartment complex looks dirty. Now, again, I think it's an apartment complex, but it's a shady-looking abandoned building. And you're chasing this guy down. I think the serial killer's code name is X. And so you and your partner are going through this building. It's very creepy. And there's these mannequins all over the place. Now, this is why you want to play this game. Oh, boy. You're wandering through. All you have is your gun, your flashlight. So you're a little more capable than the guy from Dead Space because, you're a trained FBI agent. And you're wandering around. Oh, shit, I'm in a field. I'm trapped with these mannequins all around me. And you're looking for this guy. You know he's there. And you see a mannequin in front of you. You turn around. You hear something. Shit. You turn back. The mannequin is not there anymore.
Okay.
So wait a minute now. Because mannequins don't move. What the hell is going on? Now, the thing I love about Condemned, this was a game that, has some good action in it, right? You fight people with guns, you fight people with sticks, and it's brutal. Like when some criminal attacks you, you have to guard and you have to crack their head open with that plank of wood, whatever you got. But it also had a really good detective mode. Like before Batman and all that other stuff, you get this gun that basically can, it's like a blue light almost, right? And you can scan the room for DNA and fingerprints and all this shit. And you're trying to figure out like where these people went, how people were murdered. You might see marks on like the victim's neck. And it builds this tension. Because as you're finding dead bodies and you're seeing the gruesome ways they were killed, it just shocks you and freaks you out even worse, as you're searching for these criminals. So Condemned, definitely an awesome game. And by the end, it gets batshit crazy. So just what I told you about this mannequin disappearing, there's some of that, and then by the end, it's gone full-on Carrie damn near.
Okay,
so,
all right.
Condemned. I'm going to knock 2 more out real quick.
Let's see it.
So we got Condemned, we got Alan Wake. Now, I had to drop Alan Wake in there, my boy Alan, okay, because they just remade that game, right? They did a remaster, I guess. It's not a remake per se.
Yeah,
it's a touch up.
It's like and we threw a little shade at that game in the previous episode.
We did. So people are going to be a little surprised to see me put this back on the list, but this is why. The issues that we had with that game, I saw via a trailer. I have not played this, full disclosure. They've addressed some of it, right? So the combat that was kind of shitty, they've touched it up. The graphics that could look great at times and shitty at other times, they've touched up. So again, I haven't played this, but I want to put it on this list, especially early on, because this is a game that if this is your type of horror, which is, again, let's relate it. This is a Stephen King style game, right? You're basically playing as Stephen King as he dives into one of his own stories. Again, I'll relate this to a film called In the Mouth of Madness, where this book is coming to life. It's very similar in this, where there's a book, and everything that's happening is happening to Alan Wake and the people around him. But this is what sold me on that game, right? The first time. And again, it was not a great game, but this is what sold me. You start off and you're entering this town, and it's this beautiful place that could be out somewhere in the bumblefuck of Wisconsin, wherever. And there's a diner, there's like a post office, and it gives you this freedom to explore and these characters to meet. And as you go through the story, you start to see what happens to these characters. So unlike the first two games, this is a game that's very character driven, and so you'll have a lot of fun. If that's that's what you like, you're gonna have a lot of fun going through, seeing what happens, wondering what's gonna happen next. The game is told in chapters, so you can eat it, like a snack. One bite here, one bite there. Very, very fun game. Last game I'm going to slap down on us real quick.
Okay.
Inside. Have you ever heard of this? Inside?
I've heard of it, but not details.
So look, the folks who made, I believe it was Limbo, right? And Limbo would be on my list, but I'm going to talk about Inside instead, right? Limbo is a game, side-scrolling game. You wander through this like black and white world as this child who I think is stuck in limbo. It's been too long since I've played that one. Inside, very similar. You play as what seems to be, at least, a young boy. It's a side-scrolling game, and you're wandering through map after map as you cross some sort of city, right? So you're crossing through facilities, you're crossing through fields, you're crossing through small towns, or whatever the maps are. You're going sideways through them. And what you see is there is something controlling other people. Like, they are all brainwashed, and they're all walking around like zombies, even though they aren't zombies. So it's very creepy because I think you're a little boy. You look like a little boy, and you're wandering around. You're like, what the hell is going on? Like, why are these people all moving in unison? Why are they trying to capture me? And you don't even know what you're doing. Like, there's no dialogue in this game. There's no conversations. It's all done through actions, and it all looks dark and gritty, and it's got that nice side-scrolling feel to it. Great puzzles in that game. Also, shout out to Limbo again. If you like this, go to Limbo. If you like Limbo, go to this. But the twist at the end, which I don't want to spoil, is phenomenal. Phenomenal. It will flip. It will flip the entire story on its head. And again, the only thing I want to say, minor spoilers, you don't know why you're going where you're going. But by the end, you know exactly why, and it's insane. Okay. That's my first 4.
All right, so we're at this intermission. I have a few questions for you, Power.
Yes,
because again, as a horror novice,
yes,
if you would call me, and you're my sensei here.
Come on now.
I need to know first of all, to you, what makes like a horror game a horror game? Like, what if you had to kind of make your checklist or whatever? Like, I give you a game and it has to hit these bullets, or you start playing a game and you're like, oh, this is in the horror genre. Like, to you, what makes a horror game a horror game?
It's a fantastic question. It's a fantastic question because the genre is wide. It is vast. It is potent, and it is strong. A horror game, right? For me, and I'm moving fast. We can't slow down.
Nope.
A horror game to me is a game where the developers are, and again, this is my personal preference, or description, but it is a game where the developers are trying to intentionally scare the player, right? So we have horror games like, and we're going to talk about the RE series later, but we have games like RE 6, RE 5, where they're really action games. They honestly are action games.
And I've played RE 5, and I barely would call it a horror game.
Barely. So to me, like, that treads the line, and it almost treads too far towards action. I wouldn't even personally consider that a horror game. I don't know what the rating says or what the back of the case or whatever says, but a horror game to me is where the goal for the developers is not to tell you a great story about horror, not to tell a spooky story, but to scare you one way or the other, whether it be through zombies or whether it be through poltergeists or whatever. If you're playing the game and you're like shaking in your boots, or you feel uncomfortable, I think that's a horror game to me. And I don't care what the premise is. I've seen horror games about you're playing as a doll, walking around. I've seen you're playing as a kid, you're playing as a grizzled guy, older guy. As long as it makes you scared and uncomfortable as you play, that's a horror game to me.
Okay, and I do have a follow up in terms of like getting you really properly scared, but I want to save it because I don't want to step on something I think you might talk about.
All right.
So kind of at that intermission, all right, we kind of know what a horror game is, and I'll say like to me the one thing that I will give credit to, I guess I would say horror games is that they do build up that sense of suspense. And that sense of stakes in a way other games don't necessarily. Because I caught myself earlier I'm playing some Pokemon.
Okay.
And
that's not a very scary game.
And it's not a very scary game. And and games like that and like RPGs, like you really like you're grinding. You're fighting battles. You're kind of like you're so almost in the strategy of it that there's really like the stakes are more like, are you gonna die or not? Like, are you strong enough?
Right.
Whereas like I would say the one thing I will give credit for and I enjoy when I do play these games is that there's a sense of urgency and a sense of like a more immediate sense of failure. When you hit that jump scare or when you do get in and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, I got to do this now. There's no time to pause and be like, what's my move? It's in the moment. And I will give credit to that is an exhilarating, adrenaline fueling experience.
Absolutely.
But
And actually, I got to give you an apology, man, because Lavender Town from Pokemon, one of the scariest like themes you'll ever hear, one of the most unsettling feelings.
Don't
you'll
listen
ever
to that
feel.
music for too long because it will drive you insane.
It might be a horror game. Honestly. Okay. All right, man. I'm gonna keep going.
Let's keep going. All right.
So look, we got another game, and this one I think you might actually be able to speak on because I feel like, Risa, you may have been the person that put me on this game. Bioshock.
Yes.
Did you play through Bioshock?
I played through, so we're talking the original Bioshock.
OG Bioshock. Another series, full disclosure for our listeners. Bioshock now has 3 games, I want to say. 1, 2, and Infinite or something. Okay, yeah. So, but Bioshock 1 and 2, very related, very connected, I would say. Actually, all 3.
Yeah, and a notorious game. I mean, this game is spoken about. People either love the original or they even love, there are people who are just diehard Bioshock Infinite fans. But that original game, kind of like you said, like I wanna reference Dead Space because the first thing it did is it isolated you. It puts you in this like desolate, decrepit, decaying city that was built at the bottom of the ocean.
Oh yeah.
So you are underwater in this weird, twisted, like almost like carnival-esque location on your own, and it's kind of like being trapped in like a space base. Like you are isolated, and you are the tools to survive or whatever you have and whatever you can find. And so yeah, tell me what your thoughts are on Dead Space.
So look, this is Bioshock, incredible, right? Because it's exactly like you say, you're isolated, but you're also being hunted by an alien-esque, and I mean like similar to the movie Alien type creature, right? That just pops up randomly, and he looks like a giant. He looks like a guy in a giant like.
It's like one of those old diver suits. Like when you had it was the giant. They call it like the diving bell or whatever. That big old metal dome looking thing.
And he's got like a giant drill for an arm.
Yeah.
And so, but the guy or the creature is so big. You cannot tell if he's human, if there's a human in there or not. He does not speak to you. And the only other thing you have going is that there are people. They're scattered throughout this underwater city, if you will, right? Because this place in Bioshock, this underwater city, was supposed to be a quote unquote Atlantis. It was supposed to be this paradise that just collapsed. And so there are still people down here, but most of them have gone completely batshit crazy. And so you'll see that creature, or whatever he is, hunting these people down in gruesome, bloody ways. And on top of that, you have one ally. And it's this guy, and he keeps contacting you through, I think, a walkie-talkie, the televisions, and he's, trying to get you through. He's like, come on, guy, would you kindly just go through this place? Like, I'm trying to get you. And needless to say, by the end, you have a hell of a good ride. You get real freaking spooked. Because there's just water everywhere. These entities coming after you, and And all the while, too, you're trying to rescue, I think, a little girl, right? Is that
Yeah,
the first one?
there's this whole like, man, and it's been so long since I've played, but there's this whole like little girl thing, and it's always a bit of the like moral dilemma of the game,
right?
Because I think if you kill them, right, it gets you get stronger,
right.
And it's like a big like if you do. But I think pretty early on, it points out that it's like if you do, you're kind of the bad guy. Like I think there's like if you spare them, there's like a benefit to like the plot line for doing that. But every time there is a little girl, there's one of those big daddies protecting her. Those
big daddy,
massive guys in the suits.
Hell yeah! So the last thing I want to say too about that series, right? Bioshock 1 I thought was so freaking cool. At the time, it had the best graphics you could ask for, and the graphics still hold up in terms of how the water and everything looks. The second game I remember not being as impressed with as the first, but still a very good game, very fun game. Game where you could customize certain aspects. I think your weapon you could customize, or your powers. You had like these. You took some type of injection, I think it was, and you would have powers to fight these creatures back. So you were capable to an extent. And then the third game, Infinite, which is controversial, I would say, had an incredible story. I gotta admit, when I beat that game, I was like, holy crap. That's, again, mind-blowing story, very similar to Inside, flips everything on its head, awesome stuff. So that series, great. The first game, definitely the scariest. Definitely the scariest of the series. Which leads me into the next one, Soma. Have you ever heard of Soma?
I have, yes.
Another game. Now, this one I beat, I want to say when it first dropped. And it's years ago now. Another game where you're stuck in a underwater facility of some type, right? And you're trying to figure out how the hell to get out of this place. I'm going to spoil something very significant. So this is I'm trying not to spoil for most of the games, but this one's going to get a spoiler. So just a heads up to the listeners, skip past, this point, if you don't want Soma to be spoiled, because I'm coming with it. So Soma, you're underwater. Risa, have you played this game?
I have not, no.
Okay, so you're underwater. It's very, very similar to Bioshock. You're trying to figure out how to get out. And there is a character similar to Bioshock helping you. A female character. She's trying to guide you through and explain you've got to da-da-da. All the while, you're being attacked by these mechanical creatures. They're like these, I guess they're like androids or some type of AI that's trying to attack you. I can't recall which is good. It'll make it fresh for our listeners. But midway through the game, I believe you are killed. And what you end up figuring out is you're an android. The whole time, thought you were playing as like a human trying to get out of this place, but you also
got like
are a
Blade
machine.
Runner-esque
Very
twist.
Blade Runner. And so that changes things because now you can walk out on the surface of the water because you don't have to breathe. And there's a bunch of shit like that where you're like going through trying to solve these puzzles and stuff and get out of here. There's also
the rules
some
have
very
changed. That's clever.
Yeah. So if I recall, again, spoiler. There's a point where you actually, you know what it is? And this is incredible. This is again, major spoiler, so please skip ahead like just a few minutes if you don't want to hear this. But the coolest thing about this game and what really made it scary to me was the concept that this AI, what it was doing was that you're playing as, this AI was downloading itself into new bodies. So sometimes it would, for example, somebody's got to launch the shuttle out of here, but whoever launches the shuttle has to stay behind. So they would download their brain into like another body, and this is again an example, and that body would go up into the surface while the other one launch, but they still would be killing themselves. Because like once you're a copy, you're still not the original. Like no matter what, it's like what is an original? What is like this copy's going up and it's still you, but the you that's still there is there. Like you are the one who launched the. So it was this really unique.
Kind of reminds me of that movie Moon.
Yes, it's very similar to Moon. Like what is the original? Like what are they equal? Like what is a clone? Should we? It brought those topics to light, but it was still very scary. It's a very scary game, and so that Soma, awesome game. As an actual game, when we talk about gameplay, bare minimum, right? It's a floating head.
It's an experience.
Yeah, it's more of an experience. Awesome game though. Let's keep going.
Okay.
Darkwood. I'm only going to talk about for 2 seconds, right? I purchased this game on sale. Darkwood, I must have purchased it for maybe $10 maximum. This is a top-down, isometric horror game where you wake up as some character who does not remember who they are, and you are in a place called, ta-da, Darkwood. You're in Darkwood.
I would not have guessed.
You're in Darkwood. This place is fucked up. I mean, there are creatures out in this. It looks like the creepiest forest you can think of. Everything is dead. Everything is black and white. Again, it's top down, so like when you see things coming for you, it's creepy in a different way because you can see them, whereas the character would never be able to see them. It's not first person. But the way this game works, the mechanics, you basically get a base at the start of the game. Every night, similar to there's another game that I think you know about that's similar to this. You have to prepare almost for these creatures to attack, boarding up walls and windows, seeking out materials to defend yourself, all that stuff. But it's, again, this is a top-down game, very cheap game, but it does a lot with its presence and it does a lot with its art design and graphics. Very creepy game. I have personally never beaten that game, which is why I have to shut my mouth now because I don't know quite enough about it, but I had to put it on this list out of respect because it's one of those games I need to get back to beat. Last one of this set of 4, Until Dawn. Until Dawn,
and that is a game I have played.
Yes,
although not completely.
Yes,
and that is even a game our producer has played.
Yes. So Until Dawn, one of my tops on this list, right? One of my favorites on this list. Until Dawn is a game. I think the developer's name is Supermass Games or something like that. It's very similar to Heavy Rain in the sense that it's story driven. You control the characters with all of the buttons of a controller. So one analog stick will move the character throughout the game. The other buttons will all make the character react to the world depending on the circumstances, which is very unique and very fun. Because you need to have reflexes. This is the perfect game for our producer to play because she doesn't play a lot of games. And so when she plays this one, she fucks up and it costs characters' lives. The shtick of Until Dawn is if you fuck up in the first few acts, no problem. But when you start bungling later on, those characters are dead. The whole story is altered.
It's costly.
Quick Until Dawn in a nutshell. Imagine you're playing Scream. I'm going back to movies. Okay. You're getting a little bit of a deutero here because now if you like the game that I'm talking about, watch the movie. Anyway, so you're playing as in a slasher, right? There's a set of characters, and you are in full control of these characters. Every single chapter you play as a character. And it keeps going, so let's say A, B, C, and D character, then it recycles again, A, B, C, and D character until one of those characters dies, and it goes A, B, D because that character's out. And now if that character was going to do something significant, help another character, they're not there. It impacts them. So every single time you play it, unless you're getting a perfect playthrough every time, it's different. The story is different. And it's also great because it's hard. It's not an easy game. Like, I play games, and my first playthrough, I still fucked up and lost characters. And there are characters that you love and characters that you hate. And the developers knew this. So characters that you hate are probably easier to keep alive versus the characters that you actually want to keep alive.
That's clever.
So it just worked out really well. I don't even have to tell you about the story. It's got some great actors in it. What is her name from Firefly? I'm blanking on it off the top of my head. Not Firefly, I'm sorry, Heroes. She played the cheerleader in Heroes. She's the main character.
Oh, Hayden Christensen?
Hayden Pettier.
Hayden Petty.
I think.
Yep.
She is
Christensen's Anakin.
Yes, she's incredible. If you like Bond, Rami Malek, he's the secondary main.
He's like the guy who's like mansion it is or whatever.
Yes. So you got some big actors in there. You got the surrounding cast who all do a great job. My favorite character wasn't even one of the top 2 billing. Like, it was this other guy who was goofy and kind of nerdy, and I really didn't want him to die, and he did. So you got a great cast. And then again, this spawned slightly a series. There's I think it's called Man of Medan.
Medan, yeah.
Which is part of the new series, the Dark Anthology, something like that. So there's Man of Medan, there's another one called Little Hope, and there's another one coming out with an actress I freaking love, and I'm blanking on her name too. She was from Zack and Cody on Nickelodeon, I believe it was.
that I can't help you with.
Anyway, in each one of these editions, which are not related to Until Dawn, are like bite-sized stories, horror stories. So it's really cool. They're not all great. Full disclosure, they're not all great. Mana, Medan, and the other one, Little Hope, were okay. But for the price and for the size of the story, really fun playthroughs. And
Well,
you can play through
and can I just say, and maybe as a horror novice, maybe this is one of my ways into the genre to get deeper, because replayability and like something you can sit down and do with friends sells me, like because we played Until Dawn, I think like we came over Power and we played it with you, and that was a lot of fun. Like I would not have picked that game up on my own. I don't think I even knew about it until you introduced me.
Wait, I think you're talking about Little Hope, didn't we?
No, we played that too.
Oh, we played
Until Dawn, and it was a great time. I enjoyed it. I was interested. I was having fun watching what different people either failed to do or what choices they made when there was a choice. And then same thing, we got together, you, me, our producer, some friends of ours, and we played Little Hope. Like you said, story was middling.
Right.
But again, being able to sit down and kind of pass, because that game actually encouraged you to each pick a character and pass the controller. And so you could only sit, like if you're a pro gamer, you will know nothing as agonizing and satisfying as watching someone mess up a quick time event and there's nothing you can do.
It's true. But
that is what makes the story, and that's what makes the replayability, is you never know what's going to happen, and that's going to change the outcome.
Absolutely. Yeah. So Until Dawn, that series, that franchise, I love it. I really do. All right, so I got to keep going, man, because there's so much to talk about.
Let's keep rolling.
All right, so I got a lot to say here. I'm gonna take us back now, right? I'm gonna reel us in. We got a lot of different type of listeners. We got listeners from the 90s. We got listeners from the 70s. We got listeners from the 2000s and on. So I'm gonna bring us back though, right, to PlayStation 1, and I'm just gonna talk about a few games that I loved from PlayStation 1, and this will segue into another selection of games that I love. So let's start. Have you ever heard of Parasite Eve?
I've heard of it, yes.
Was Square Enix's entryway into horror, in my opinion. I don't know if they ever made a horror game before Parasite Eve. Some people might not consider Parasite Eve a horror game. However, Parasite Eve, to me, was scary as all holy hell. This was, it was very Carrie-esque. It was about an antagonist who was very beautiful, very strong, and also psychically deadly. She could, I believe the opening of Parasite Eve 1, or maybe Eve 2, because there was a sequel, is this woman singing this beautiful song in this opera, and all of a sudden people just start bleeding out of their eyes, heads exploding, guts flying everywhere, and she's just wiping them out. Our antagonist, or our protagonist, is also a psychic. She's this badass like cop who works for, I think it's the LAPD. I think it takes place in New York. And so her goal is to stop this creature, this alien, this woman, and again, full disclosure, I've never beaten it. I got far as hell in it, and I just never.
Those old PlayStation 1 games were tough.
Gotta go back and finish it, and it is a tough game to beat, honestly, for me. But it was really cool. Like, this is a game where if you like Final Fantasy, which I love to name drop, if you like Square Enix and JRPGs, this is the perfect blend of JRPG and horror, because you get a cool protagonist who looks like a Final Fantasy character, who can wield magic in this weird way, but she is in a horror game, period, and she's overhead. Actually, I'm sorry, too, there's 3 games in this series, because they end up making Third Birthday, which came out for PSP years and years later. Never played it. But Parasite Eve 1 and 2, fantastic games for the PlayStation 1 if you want to get classic. If you want another classic, Dino Crisis. Dino Crisis is another amazing horror game. I cannot stress this enough. If you've played Dino Crisis 2, shut up. Turn your brain off, because I swear to you, it's nothing like the first one. Dino Crisis 2 came out. It's this crappy action game where you're shooting dinosaurs up, and it's really lame.
The classic sequel, yep.
Yeah. Dino Crisis 1, you arrive as a special task unit trying to figure out what the hell happened on this Jurassic Park-esque island. When you arrive, there's nothing but chaos, guts, and dead bodies all over the damn place. And of course, it's because this place, similar to Jurassic Park, was raising dinosaurs that ended up being let loose. Now, why you should play this game? This is a PlayStation 1 game, right? There is a boss battle, and I'm not going to tell you when it happens. I'm not going to tell you who it's against. There is a boss battle where you fight somebody, or you corner somebody in their office. This is gameplay. You corner them in your office, and they're, they're like a doctor or some scientist. They're like, oh, we did this, blah, blah, whatever. And you're like, I need this information. And mid-gameplay for PlayStation 1, the wall collapses and a T-Rex head bursts into the freaking office and starts biting at you. And you literally have to defend yourself as you're like, you have to back into a corner. Hopefully you got enough bullets to keep this thing away. Moment. It is so classic and it is so raw how they did this in PlayStation 1. I couldn't believe it. The first time it happened, I got so scared I dropped my controller. I tried to pick it up, got killed immediately. So it's not just like, it's not one of them canned, like, haha, you'll survive no matter what. It's like, yeah, that dinosaur will kill you. You need to be on your toes and ready to go. And the game has many, many moments like that. Now, that's a giant T-Rex head busting through a wall. Imagine when you're wandering in the halls with velociraptors running all around the damn facility. That's Dino Crisis. It is a horror action game, but again, like Resident Evil 5 and 6, it treads the line between the two of action and horror, but this one definitely teeters more towards horror, similar to my next game. It was about time, Resident Evil 1. Oh, so, Resident Evil 1. I mean, come on, guys. You know Resident Evil. If you're listening to Reset 9, you know Resident Evil. You know games. You know the crappy franchise with Mila Jovovich. I think that's her name. You know how this goes. But I have to talk about Resident Evil 1 because this was probably one of the first horror games I ever had experience with, and it wasn't for me playing it. At the time, I had a relative who was dating somebody who was playing it, and I used to watch him play the game. And he played through Resident Evil 1, 2, and 3 all in like the span of a week, and it was incredible. I mean, I had never seen somebody... When I thought about horror games, I thought about choking. I thought about inventory management that I could not comprehend at the time, and this guy was just kicking butt, killing zombies, taking names, prisoners, whatever. And so Resident Evil 1, if you have not heard of it, if you have not played it, it is a game where you arrive and it is the OG mansion horror, right? You show up in this video game and you are in a giant mansion with all the facilities that a mansion would have. And there are zombies, but there are also other creatures wandering around this space. And you're really there to research the organization Umbrella, which is basically the reason why like zombies exist and why this outbreak is happening.
Now, and now this is a game I can talk a little bit about too, and I can speak to because I have played the original Resident Evil. I played it on PlayStation. I played the, I guess you call it a remake on GameCube, which is still my favorite version, and that might just be the nostalgia behind it.
Hands down, no, you're right.
But like you said, like. And I think one of the versions, I forget the differences between the PlayStation and the GameCube, but I had this amazing like black and white like cinematic intro that set the stage where you and your special unit are going in to investigate like a missing squad, and you get to this mansion. But one of the coolest things about this game, and again throwing back to this replayability, is you get to pick your character.
Yes.
And there were two different characters. There's Chris Redfield and Jill Valentine, and they're different. It's not just a like skin. It's like boy or girl. No. It's like Chris.
Their stories.
He's a little more durable. He can move a little faster, but his inventory is smaller.
Right.
He's got, I think, like less firepower. And then Jill, not as much health. Couldn't move as fast, but more firepower. I think she had like a lockpick. You could like get in places you couldn't as Chris.
Like that. Yep.
Bigger inventory, and the story's different. So right off the bat, not only are you in this great game, but you're really in one of two great games.
Exactly. I mean, the game was freaking awesome. Again, we don't want to spoil too much, but it had a great antagonist. When you know the name Wesker, you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It had some really creepy villains, some creepy monsters. The remake is the way to go. Graphically, it's better. Gameplay-wise, it just plays better. It's smoother. And that game to this day is scary as shit. I don't care if the graphics look a little dated. There's gonna be something that happens to you that's gonna get you. Moment for Resident Evil 1. I'm walking down the halls in this mansion, and it's just some side corridor, and there's windows lining the whole corridor. People who've played this game know what's coming. And I'm walking down the hall, and it's creepy, it's raining, it's thundering, and all of a sudden, this glass breaks, and this fucking dog just jumps through the window. I'm like, oh shit! So I'm trying to get my gun ready. This is Resident Evil 1, so like you can't it's not like an action game where you just pop your gun out and you spray it. Like you have to turn around, like your character moves like a tank. So you're like, ooh, you're trying to turn while this dog is rushing you. And if you don't get that gun out and shoot this thing fast enough, it will kill you. Or it will use all your resources, the few herbs you've got, it will use. I'm going to actually talk a little bit more about some other Resident Evil games as we go. But one thing I really respected about this first series too is that you needed a ink reel, I think it was, in order to save.
This ribbon for this ink typewriter
ribbon.
or something.
So you needed the ribbon, and if you didn't have any, you could not save.
Yep.
So it was
really punishing. And I gotta say, like, before you move on, just one of the things that really set the tone for this was that combination of, first off, it had fixed camera angles.
Yeah.
So unlike most games, like when you entered in it, like you cannot move the camera. It is whatever image, because the backgrounds were pre-rendered. Yes. They were this gorgeous static backgrounds that really like set the mood and gave you this atmosphere of this mansion. And then it was these 3D sprite, like the characters and the objects were like rendered on top of them. Mm-hmm. And then you had, like you said, those tank controls. So literally the way you moved in this game was you could go forward or backwards, and then you had to rotate. So it's kind of like a tank turret. Like you couldn't just like move to the side. If you like saw something, you needed to you literally had to like press right or left to rotate and then move in that direction.
It was clunky.
And just that but that slowed it all down to make every choice and every movement that much more intense.
Absolutely reset. And the only thing that game, the original PS1 version at least, had that was scarier than the remake and any of the monsters was the voice acting. The voice acting may have been the worst voice acting that I have ever heard. For anybody who needs proof, I dare you to go ahead and listen to Jill call Barry's name in that Resident Evil 1 for PS1. Look it up. Just type in Barry, Resident Evil 1, PS, whatever. You're going to hear it, and you're going to laugh your asses off because it was terrible. But I just want to... This segues us into the Resident Evil series. I got to keep going with it because I don't want to have to come back. Resident Evil 2, right? Great game. You play as two new protagonists, Leon Kennedy and... who's the other character that you play as? Not Jill. Claire Redfield, who is Chris's sister from the first game. You get to play as them. Very similar concept. You're in a police precinct. Also has a beautiful, beautiful remake that just came out maybe 2 or so years ago, 3 years ago, something like that. That is the way to go. Play that remake. It is top 5 best horror games I have ever played in terms of gameplay, graphics, mood, storytelling, everything. It is top 5. It is incredible. It is incredible. And animations in the remake, when you shoot a zombie in the face, their jaw might fall off. When you shoot them in the arm, their arm will fall off, but they'll still keep coming for you. It's not over. You can see them hit the ground, and you're walking past, they'll grab at you. Like, double tap has never been more accurate than in that game. So Resident Evil 2, awesome game. I still love the idea of being in a mansion in Resident Evil 1, but as a game, probably Resident Evil 2 is the best in the series, honestly, in terms of gameplay. Resident Evil 3 obviously has Nemesis. For fans of the series, y'all know what I'm talking about. For newcomers, Nemesis was he kind of re-energized the series, because the first two are very similar in how they play. Third game, Jill comes back, and this time she's sexy. I mean, she came back, right? They were shameless. They were like, all right, look, we're going to, Jill, who was this badass, like, cop, now we're going to just throw her in, like, a skimpy blue dress, whatever. Like, it was goofy. But she basically has to contend against the first, in my opinion, one of the first series antagonists outside of Wesker, of course, who is Nemesis. And he is an actual creature. Like, he is a genetically mutated, I think, agent that actually, in the movies, they show you who he is, and the movies are terrible, but I can't recall if he was actually an agent in the game. However, he is a morphing mutant creature who looks like the Hulk, like when he walks after you, when he comes after you. He's very strong. He has the ability to extend his limbs and transform and do all these horrible things. He can rip people to shreds with his hands, and he will pop up at you from nowhere. Like, you will be walking around, and all of a sudden a gate will bust down, and he'll just start coming after you. He's also a tank, so you cannot kill him. You have to figure out a way to slow him down and get past him, which can be real freaking annoying. Again, they made a remake of the third game. I have yet to play it, but what I have heard is to play the original. I heard this one did not stick the landing like the second game. However, I don't know that for sure, and I can't wait to play it. Then we got Resident Evil 4. Resident Evil 4, right? My favorite of the series. It has to be. When I picked up the limited edition of Resident Evil 4 for GameCube, it came in this beautiful silver tin case. It was one of the first collector's editions I ever had. And I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I actually had never... This might have been my first Resident Evil game that I played from start to finish. I was not a Resident Evil fan, but I had a GameCube and I wanted a rated M game for that damn system. That game was so incredible. The way you start that game out, you're playing as Leon from the second game. So literally they're hopscotching here with their protagonists. He's back now, and he's soloing it, just like Jill was soloing in the third game.
Okay.
And he enters this town, and right away, there aren't any zombies per se. Like, these people aren't zombies, but they're definitely like, they're fucked up in some way where they're trying to attack you. They're almost like a cultist or something. And at the very beginning of the game, you are boarding windows, like busting out walls, trying to escape these people, sprinting away, shooting them. Like, you're doing all this shit to survive in this small town. It's like all these people are trying to grab you. I'm not kidding you. It's in the opening, right? And then all of a sudden you hear this town bell, bing, 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 ring, and everybody disperses. And I'm pretty sure that's when they do the title drop, and you're like, what the fuck is going on? You're like, what?
It's an epic intro.
Fuck is happening? Is this even Resident Evil anymore? The game's awesome. Now, this is where horror goes kind of off the radar a bit. Because Leon is so badass. He's so cool. He's so badass that by, I think it's the sixth game, he's damn near guarding the president. Like, it gets ridiculous. And also, this dude can do all sorts of Matrix moves. He can damn near dodge bullets. Like, it's ridiculous. This is where we start getting a little too crazy. But I love the game. The game was so much fun. It's very Metal Gear-esque, where you're on this island by yourself. You got to rescue I think it's the president's daughter at the time, and you got to get to her, you got to find her, you got to get her out of there. All these things Leon has to achieve, and that's all I'm going to say. But the game is awesome. If you've never played Resident Evil 4 and you like the later series, it's very similar to 5, 6, and a little bit to 7 and 8, because it's more action-oriented, I think. Moving on to 5. 5, we get Chris Redfield back. Right? He's back in action. He's swoller than ever. And I mean swole. Like, again, if you've never played these games, look this guy up. Look up Chris Redfield, Resident Evil 4, or 5, I'm sorry, and you will see the Hulk. I mean, it was ridiculous.
Oh, yeah. This dude was Arnold Schwarzenegger on steroids.
Oh, my God.
But I don't like... I get that this game is a Resident Evil game, but it just did not scare me. You could play the whole game co-op. And so I think I co-opted it with someone else, and it felt like an action game.
That was the shtick, right? They rode off the wave of Resident Evil 4. They realized we're onto something. People loved Resident Evil 4. I think, I'm not going to put my foot in my mouth, but I want to guess it was probably the highest grossing game at the time for that series. I mean, it was awesome. It really was awesome. I can't stress how awesome Resident Evil 4 was. It's my favorite in the series. But nevertheless, 5 comes after. It's very similar in terms of gameplay. Camera angle, I should say also, like you said, fixed angles all the way up through 3. 4 changed that. Now it's third person, similar to games like The Last of Us, which I'll bring up a little bit later. But around the corner of the shoulder of the main character you're playing. You know, 5 again, very similar to 4, but they added co-op. They're like, okay, people love this. They're gonna love it playing with their friend. Except the story sucked. Chris Redfield was a goofy loser compared to Leon, and he was way too swole and juiced. Sheva was cool. She didn't get enough to do, and she never came back. And actually, the only thing I remember from the reason why I remember Sheva is because every time you would scream her name, Sheva, Sheva, Sheva. But this series was so stupid that at one point in time, in the 5th game, a boulder rolls and tries to, I think, run you over or something. And the way you stop it, as Chris Redfield, is to punch it. And I don't mean one time. It's not even like as simple as that, where you just hit that thing and it breaks. He's literally, he's working the bag like Rocky Balboa on this boulder with his swole muscle. And that's when I literally reset. It's horror time. I ripped my head open. I took my brain out of my head and I set it on the table. Because I realized, okay, you're not needed right now. So Resident Evil 5, not scary at all. Very fun co-op game, I would say, for the first playthrough. But other than that, it was pretty worthless to me, personally. Rolls us right to 6. They followed the same mistakes. 6, I think, was only single player at this point, but they just tripled down on the action. Come on, man.
Let's be honest. And I haven't even played them, but I know what we're getting. Like, let's fast forward. Like, we got all these Resident Evils, but there's these new ones, right?
Okay.
Like, is that, like, I want to know, like... Yeah.
No, you're right.
Horror expert, like, come on, like...
All right. Forget the 6. So like, now here we are, Resident Evil 7, which they don't even call Resident Evil 7 for the most part. They just went back to Resident Evil, and that's because this is a reimagining, right? So we went from fixed camera angles, third person, and now we're looking at first person, which we all know as horror fans.
And they've never done that, right? Shit. Resident Evil has never done that.
Never, ever, ever. This is the first time, and they went for photorealistic graphics. So you're playing through Resident Evil. I got to talk about this in 2 ways. We got Resident Evil 7, we got Resident Evil 8, and they are connected. They follow the same new character created for this series named Ethan Winters. That is your main protagonist. Both games are absolutely phenomenal, but 7 is phenomenal if you played in VR. It is the first VR horror experience that I have had. I played through some other little demos and stuff when I got PSVR, but I played through the whole game of Resident Evil 7 in VR, and it is hands down, I'm putting this out there today on air, the scariest game experience I have ever had in my life. By far. I've played almost every horror game. I can't even go through, I'm not going to get through them all today, but that experience, I had to take my helmet off and detox. Like, I could not believe, there is a scene, so I'll give you, I'm not even going to go into the story. There's a scene where you have to fight this creepy old woman, and you end up taking her out, and she falls into this pit. And so, like, you know, you go, you're like, all right, got her, you know, blah, blah, blah. And you go and you're like, I got to get back in this house. So you try to get back in this house or something like that. And you're like, oh, shit, she had the key. So you go back because you're like, shit, I need to get the key off her body. And you look down at the pit or some shit and she's gone. You're like, what the hell? So you climb down there. And now, like, there's a long tunnel connected to this pit. And all you see when you get to the bottom is her scurrying away. But at this point, her body is morphed into a spider-like creature. Nope. She's just crawling away on all fours down this tunnel, and you're expecting. I took my helmet off. I sat there. I said, "Is it really worth it?" It is that game scared the shit out of me. Roll into Resident Evil 8. Resident Evil 8 did not have a VR component, which sucked. I don't know why you guys did that, but nevertheless, the graphics were top tier. Our top tier. It just came out, so if you're looking for something fresh, that's the one to go into. The characters, it's called Resident Evil 8 Village, V111 for frickin' 8, whatever. It is cool. It's a whole different feel because the first game you're in a house, in a compound. In this you're in a village. So you're exploring. You meet a few characters who lived in this village or are living in this village. But there's a sense of exploration in this game that the prior series didn't have. Worth it in all fronts to play.
Okay, and I'm glad you got here because the question I had to delay from earlier was horror and VR. Because as someone I'm not an expert on the horror genre, and you are, and And hearing you say that like the VR horror experience is the next level of a horror experience, and especially given that like what you want to see in a horror game is you want to be scared, like you want to be scared, you want to be terrified. And I have to say, now this, I don't know if you would really call this a horror game. This is still kind of more like an adventure game, but I started diving into VR and I picked up Half-Life Alyx.
Oh.
And Half-Life has always been one of those sort of on the border games. Like it's kind of like a third person like adventure like game, but it's got these horror elements. Right. And so I started playing Half-Life Alyx. And this game, the moment I will remember, and I will tell you, Power, as someone who is not a horror game player, this sold me on a little bit of that like needing to get scared and needing that intensity. Yeah. There's a moment in this game, and this is not like a plot spoiler, but just know I'm going to tell you something that happens in the game. Okay. So if you want to play Half-Life Alyx, you don't want anything spoiled, sorry, I'm about to tell you a scene from it.
Right.
It's no big.
Just skip.
But basically, suffice to say, you get going, and you have to make your way through this kind of series of like tunnels to get to your objective. And as you're going through, like you're in this. And like clearly at some point something happened here. Okay. And now, so people who don't know the Half-Life game, it's there's like these alien creatures called the facehuggers, and they can basically like if they get on you, they kind of turn you into essentially like a zombie, like this sort of like possessed creature. And so you get in this place, and the first thing you see is there's these dead bodies, and you literally have to move one. Like you're in VR, and you have to like grab one and move it out of the way to climb down something. They're nasty. And so you start going in, and you get to this point, and you walk into this thing, and there's this dead guy hanging on this chain from the ceiling over a pit, and somehow his hand is still gripping a shotgun. And right as you walk in, there's these like boarded up walls, and they start, poof, there's something on the other side, poof, poof, trying to get to you. And the like guy who's on your comm, he's like, you better get to that shotgun. So you climb down and you run over. And I mean, this is on VR. So you like, there's like this wheel on the chain, and you have to like pop this pipe out, wheel it down, but like stop it so it doesn't fall into the pit, like lock it up. And right as you run over and you grab this shotgun, and it is just empty. It's just the shotgun. It's like a double barrel, but like popped open, so it's like you can see the walls break open, and there's just 3 of these essentially zombies, and they just start coming for you. And so, in that span of time, you literally have to grab a shotgun bullet with your VR control. You have to pop it in there, pop the other one in, flip it up so it locks in, and then start to blast these zombies.
Oh my gosh!
And the intensity of this moment, because I'm literally it's VR, so I get to be putting the shotgun in, but I'm also looking, and I see this giant zombie just dragging towards me.
Yeah.
And that, honestly, that was exhilarating. That moment was fun.
It is. It's
and so I can see, VR and horror is an amazing combination.
I'm so excited for the future of horror with VR. Honestly, I feel like it hasn't been tapped into quite enough. I can't wait, man. I really can't. I got to get to that Alyx one of these days. Yes. I will. But man, I got so much to say, but we only got so much time.
So what do you think? Because I've got a couple games I want to throw at you.
Okay.
That I would say they're horror games, but some people will maybe contest me.
Yes.
And again, as the novice here, I want the novice, the novice here, man.
Yeah, you a little.
I want to throw them at you, and I want to see what you think, what our listeners think, and then maybe we wrap up with a top pick. And then we'll probably have to throw on our Twitter. We'll throw Power's full horror games to playlist. We can throw the
whole list out there.
But okay, so you want me to send them at you?
Swing them my way. Let's knock them out real quick.
There's 2 games. I'm glad because I had Resident Evil. I want to make sure that Resident Evil 1 we touched, and I'm glad you talked about that. That game is a game I've played and I love.
Yes.
There's 2 other games that are sort of like my foray into the horror genre. One is called 7 Days to Die.
Yeah.
And have you heard about this game?
I think you may have mentioned this to me a few times.
So I don't know of our listeners. I don't know if you've played this, but this is to me, this is this beautiful combination of like zombie shooter game, Left 4 Dead or whatever, and Minecraft. Because this.
Okay.
Because this game. So basically, in this game, It takes place in this fictional like part of Arizona post World War III, and the implied thing is that World War III basically also created zombies.
Okay.
And you just get dropped in butt naked with nothing.
Oh.
And so it's basically like Minecraft. The very like cuz you've got like a hunger meter, you've got a thirst meter, and you can craft stuff. So the first thing you do is you're like, "All right, let me get some twigs, let me make like a bow.
Yeah.
Let me get like you can find these like yucca plants, like almost like a cactus, gives
Okay.
you water,
Sure.
you know, you start collecting, and then it's just like survive. And it's basically like whatever you want to do. I mean, you could stay because usually it throws you in like a rural area. It's like you can stay here, but there's also like towns. There's like military bunkers. But here's the thing. So during the day, there are zombies. They're pretty sparse, like if you're like out in the wilderness. But if you go into a town, they're all over the place. During the day, they're pretty lethargic. They just like if they see you, they'll come after you, but they're pretty slow. They're kind of ambling. At night, they turn feral. And they will run at you. I mean, if you are out too long and you are in a city trying to gather supplies and like find guns and things, and like you can even craft like a scooter that you can drive around.
Oh, no way.
But if you are in there and it turns night and they see you, they will book it at you. I mean, we're talking, like Left 4 Dead, like, or like that, like these zombies will charge you. And every 7 days, hint 7 days to die, the blood moon comes up. And a horde of zombies will just rush your location. So basically, you have 7 days to either build a little base or like find a place to hole up, survive enough to like you start with like, a little bow, maybe an axe, and then maybe you start getting some parts, finding like a gun, you put up some spikes, and then you got to live through the night. So maybe the first night is like a Minecraft night. You literally just fortify and you just hear them outside snarling and digging at you. But eventually you build yourself a little tower. You're popping these guys off. And this is to me, it's that perfect combination because it's got that horror element, that intensity. You're sneaking around. But it's also like there's sort of this broad goal. Like you got to explore. You got to craft. You got to make a base. There's like this open-ended like, are you clever enough to survive?
Hey, that sounds like something I need to play. And it also sounds like a perfect time for me to ask our producer if I can take a break because I gotta piss. I'm gonna piss myself. Just give me 1 second, will you?
Time for your regularly scheduled ad break. Did you know that peonies, among all the flowers, produce a specific compound that, when combined with a little bit of gold leaf and mercury, create the essence that is the core of the Philosopher's Stone? That's right, I'm immortal, bitches. I bet you didn't know that.
I love how we're like, let's make this a 30-minute episode.
Hour plus later.
Like the longest episode we ever had.
I mean, we can edit it together. We could even find some clever ways to mix it. I mean, we can just we can condense it, and then we can take some of the games and be like, we'll just add this to a clip that's like Power's favorite,
You can do that. I'm not.
Golly, I apologize. That was a close call.
Man,
holy
I
shit.
hear that.
I had to piss, man. I was like, what the fuck? I was trying to make it to the end of the episode, but it got to that point. Okay.
All right. I figure I got one more to throw at you,
cool.
and then
we'll wrap it up.
And all right. And Power, listen.
Okay.
There's one more game I gotta throw at you because I know you've played it, and I consider it a horror game.
All right.
Even though I wouldn't associate that with the series as a whole, but this game I call it a horror game.
Okay.
Bloodborne.
Oh, I played Bloodborne.
So I'm sure many of you are instantly like, okay. So this is a game from Software, the notorious producers of the Dark Souls series.
Yeah.
And this is a Souls game.
It
in
is.
all in all intents and purposes, it plays like a Souls game.
Yeah.
But it's got this gorgeous gothic Victorian horror theme.
Beautiful.
I mean, that is even a genre, like a subgenre of horror. I would say that gothic horror.
Yes.
That you don't really see a lot nowadays. There are some fantastic horror films
For sure.
that you would probably know better than me, to be honest. But this kind of vibe. So it's, like a Souls game, very much you just kind of are thrown into it. You pick a class,
Right.
and you got to start fighting off these creatures, but with a few kind of cool aesthetic and artistic style choices, which is first, everything's got this Victorian Gothic theme. I mean, just the style of the clothes, the town Yarnum that you're in has this very kind of old Victorian London like vibe to it.
Yes.
And you go through, and I mean, the people you're meeting, the kind of the vague plot to it, the way they sort of pop out these creatures and everything. It's just Dark Souls as the gothic horror game.
Yeah, and this is what Resident Evil 5 wanted to be, like badass action. It's actually more action oriented than Dark Souls, because in this game it's all about dodging, and if you get hit, giving it back to get health back, right?
Yep. It's fast.
It's fast paced. It's like Sekiro more so than Dark Souls, but it is dark. But also you're playing as a hunter, and so these hunters are wearing these badass cloaks with these transforming weapons and these pistols, these old muskets almost.
Yeah, the old like flintlock style, like single double barrel pistols. I mean, they got like scythes, like these different like very styled weapons.
It is a very, very sweet balance, because you're playing as these cool characters with these cool weapons, fighting equally scary and cool monsters. You're fighting werewolves and transforming gargoyle
like
type
zombie dogs, even like deranged villagers who are like some are carrying like flaming torches and the lanterns. Like it feels kind of like a Resident Evil game on crack.
Hell yes, that is a perfect blend of horror and action to me. That is as perfect as it gets, honestly.
But okay, I mean, we definitely gotta throw our listeners your list. But Power, I'll let you take us into the end game. We've held everyone long enough.
We've held them long enough, and I just want to throw out a few last minute names for y'all who are really, you heard the list and you're thinking, I still want more Power. You didn't tell me enough Power. You're always complaining. So let me give you this. There's Sinking City. Beautiful Cthulhu style game. There's Last of Us. I know you heard of Last of Us. Great acting from Ashley Johnson and just amazing gameplay. Deadly Premonition, if you like Twin Peaks. It's a very goofy, campy horror game that barely plays well. Amnesia Dark Descent. You can't go wrong on PC. PT, Hideo Kojima's attempt at Silent Hill. You can't go wrong if you can actually get a copy of it. And Reset, I'm not even going to waste any time talking anymore about these last three, but one day we will come back to Fatal Frame, Evil Within, and of course, my top horror franchise, Silent Hill. But that will have to be saved for another time.
I'll tell you what, Power. As a Halloween gift to all of our listeners, I want you, like, of that list, you can pick a game. And we can do a playthrough together. I will jump in and Fatal Frame, Silent Hill. Like you tell me what game Reset needs to do, and we'll try and we'll set it up somehow. We'll try and record something. We'll get Reset's dive into one of Power's favorite horror games.
Beautiful. Hey, give me some time, and listeners, if you guys have some recommendations, you heard it right here. If you want Reset to play through one of these games off Power's list, come on. Comment, tell me. I'm gonna force this guy to play from beginning to finish. So you tell me which game we need to go through together, because I'm ready to slam these horror games.
Let's go.
Y'all. But with that said,
Reset.
All right. What would you rate horror games?
Listen, I don't know how I felt, but I feel like I was energized just by listening to some of the amazing games you listed. I'm gonna give it 4 out of 5 healing herbs.
Okay. Fair enough. So listen, for me, horror games mean a lot. I've played through all of them. I gotta give them 5 out of 5 blood splatters. Okay.
If it's on the screen, all
blood
the better.
Everywhere, guts
if you're bleeding
everywhere.
while you play, even better.
Yeah. Well, listen, y'all. Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween.
Such a beautiful holiday. So much fun, so much candy. Enjoy, dress up, get kinky with it. Do your thing. Game, of course. Play these games. Reset, tell them what it is.
And make sure you check us out on Instagram and Twitter, because as we go through Halloween, we're going to be tweeting about it. We're going to be snapping on that Instagram, showing off everything we playing, all the fun we're having as Power and I go out trick-or-treating.
Yes, we will.
But happy Halloween, everyone. And remember, as we reset for next week, let's hit that power button and get to playing.